For quite a number of years at this point, Kubo has been heavily involved in the production of the Thousand Year Blood War anime. From helping with the script to storyboarding actual scenes, the mangaka has had his hands pretty full. But with the release of Part 4 coming in the near future and that being the finale for the original story, the question I'd like to ask is, once the Thousand Year Blood War anime reaches its conclusion, what's next for Tite Kubo? Probably sipping Mai Tais in the Maldives. But after that, I really only see three routes in which Kubo will take for his next project. The first route being a Burn the Witch sequel. Burn the Witch, for those who are unaware, is a manga that originally started out as a one-shot released in 2018, but then was later followed by a 4-chapter serialization. In said manga, we follow the adventures of Noelle and Ninny, two witches working for Wingbind in Reverse London, the western branch of the Soul Society that is populated by dragons and kept secret from the human world. It's kinda like Bleach, but everyone's British, and much like Bleach, I personally was late to the party when it came to checking it out. But after watching the anime produced by Studio Colorido, not only was I very pleasantly surprised, I am now also eagerly awaiting more from the series. The very last chapter was released sometime around 2021. A teaser for Season 2 was actually announced sometime after the last chapter was released, but if I remember correctly, Kubo quickly came out and clarified that that announcement was given by the company, and it would be a while before we saw any more from Burn the Witch. So, maybe after 4 years, he's finally ready to return and delve deeper into this world. And even though I haven't listed the other routes yet, this one is what I'd like to see the most, and probably what we will actually see next, but I'll give my reasons as to why a little later. But speaking of other routes, the second one deals with Kubo not necessarily picking up the pen again to make some more manga. Instead, it deals with the possibility of him staying with the team at Studio Pierrot and creating more Bleach there. From an outsider's perspective, it seems like the guy really enjoys being so heavily involved in its production. And during a recent interview with one of the producers of the Thousand Year Blood War, Yoshihiro Tominaga, he explained that the studio's subdivision, Pierrot Films, was created exclusively to produce this final arc. And with said subdivision established, the producer admitted to their past shortcomings and that the idea now is to keep pushing forward and keep pushing forward hard. Now, I don't know about you, but if an entire subdivision of a studio is created to focus on one project, and that project becomes massively successful with worldwide praise, I can't imagine it'll be shut down just because the arc is finished. Especially if there is still more story to adapt and the author of the original material is still willing to work together. Even with this possibly being the case though, I don't believe that if Kubo goes this route, we'll suddenly see something like the Hell Arc be their next animated project. What's more likely to happen, in my opinion, is an adaptation of the novels. The Death Save the Strawberry, Spirits Are Forever With You, and Can't Fear Your Own World. And even with the little knowledge I have of these novels, I am already so certain that a solid adaptation of at least Spirits and World would be a guaranteed smash hit. The Bleach world is vast and extremely interesting, and not only do these novels expound upon the lore, but they also deliver some real standout characters that have become fan favorites, such as the 7th and 8th Kenpachi in addition to Tokonada, who is voiced, side note, by the same guy who voices Nanami in Jujutsu Kaisen. In Bleach Brave Souls, that's the way that you hear his voice. However, it is important to note that while these novels do have the name of Bleach and the author of Bleach attached to them, they were in fact not written by Kubo. All he did, I believe, was give some insight for the story and some sketches as well, which ultimately means that these novels are not technically canon to the actual series. But hey, it's not like animated non-canon material isn't something new to Bleach. And if Kubo was interested enough to provide some artwork for these books, then I'm sure he'd be open to folding them into the canon and have Pierrot Films animate the hell out of it. It'll either be that, or the studio will indulge themselves in a different endeavor, that being a Bleach remake. I already have an entire video covering this very subject matter, so if you'd like to see my full in-depth thoughts on the idea of a remake, That video will be linked below. So to keep it more on the shorter side over here, I'm 50-50 on this possibility. It would be very cool to see the original Bleach story told properly in the anime, with more consistent pacing, a higher consistency of quality animation, and no filler. However, if this were the path that both the studio and Kubo chose, that would mean everything else would be put on the back burner for a very long time. No Hell Arc, no Burn the Witch, just the remake, which I'm not personally a fan of. As cool as a remake would be, I think I'd rather see something new. Speaking of something new though, that brings us to the final route, which is something I've name-dropped in this video already at least a couple times. It's the Hell Arc. And for those who don't know, as the name implies, the Hell Arc deals with the underworld of the Bleach universe. On August 10th, 2021, Kubo released a 73-page long one-shot entitled No Breaths from Hell. The chapter takes place after the ending of the Thousand-Year Blood War and deals with the original cast of the series, their children, as well as the ceremony for a certain character. The contents of this chapter, as stated before, have been out for quite some time, but with the anime being so close to its end, I'd really rather not spoil any more than I already have. Just know that when No Breaths from Hell did initially drop, it had the entire fanbase in a chokehold for a few solid months. And you can tell just how much everyone enjoyed it because, outside of the whole chokehold thing, almost every single time Kubo does a club outside, which is essentially a Q&A he conducts for his fans, he is constantly asked about it. Despite the hounding of questions though, Kubo himself has revealed basically nothing about a follow-up or continuation for this one-shot. But taking into account what the Hell Arc deals with alongside a lot of the work Kubo has been putting in over the years, it's clear that regardless of an official update, that he is still working on it in the background. He released tons of updated designs for his most recognizable and living characters in an art exhibition. Then he went through the trouble of creating 11 new and unique designs for the original Gotei 13. And finally, in an interview conducted sometime in 2023, he stated that back when I was working on a weekly series, I started by drawing the first 3 pages and then let it sit for a day. Ever since I finished doing a weekly series, I draw about 5 pages to move the story forward and let it sit for a month. All that in conjunction obviously means that if Burn the Witch 2 isn't what's next for the mangaka, then a continuation for the Hell Arc absolutely is. However, even though the routes are definitely viable options and people have been desperately waiting for a follow-up for the Hell Arc, I'm about 90% sure that the next project we will see from Kubo is Burn the Witch 2. For one, we already have a drawn teaser for the sequel, and for two, I feel like since burnout is a very real thing that creatives and regular people go through, taking a break from Bleach to work on something else that is desperately waiting to be explored further is probably for the best. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that I believe is going to do it for this one. So thank you all very much for watching. I hope that you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with the notifications on, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody!